I am so excited for this episode to go live. Within all of the sales traction episodes, obviously what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find insights, I'm trying to find takeaways, and it can be very, very practical. I think this is probably the episode where there's been the most laughter, the most fun. Yes, you've got the practical takeaways in there, but it's also wrapped in some incredible stories. I'm interviewing Adrian Lomas. So Adrian Lomas is an exited founder, built and sold an incredibly successful company. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. We really go through his chronology of how did you initially start out? What did it initially look like when you were the one selling? How did you then bring other people in? How did you get out of the sales seat? How did you then manage to exit without the organization being dependent on you? So that was an incredible story with some real bumps along the way. Like what happens when you hire someone and you think they're smarter than you, and then all of a sudden it's you versus the little clique of people that they've created within your organization. It becomes the tail wagging the dog, and how did he navigate that? He was running a marketing agency, which can be very broad in terms of the market you're going after. He niched down incredibly well to be the number one, the famous version of a very specific niche that he went after. I'm going to save all of it so you can watch it in the podcast itself. Really valuable conversation. Hope you get value from it. Adrian, welcome to Sales Traction.
Hello. How are you doing, Oliver?
Doing very, very well. Very, very well.
Yes.
I was saying in the pre-brief just prior to this, there's a number of different areas that I'm really excited to jump into in this conversation with you. So if I look back at your past, you've got EOS implementer. So that means lots of experience across lots of different companies and seeing how different things work and don't work. You've got Tony Robbins coach. How is it that we can affect change, and how is it that we can change the mindset of people? And then we've also got previous business owner, built, launched, exited. So lots of different vantage points that we're going to cover off here. Where I initially want to start is Blueleaf. So Blueleaf was, correct me if I'm wrong, the agency that you previously ran and owned. I want to understand what were the different sales stages, if you like, that Blueleaf went through. So starting off with you starting up the company, you're doing everything, you're the salesperson, you're the cleaner, you're everything that's available, you're the one, to the point of exiting. Could you walk me through that journey?
Sure. I mean, it's quite a long journey in some respects. I ran Blueleaf for 20 years, but going back to when I started it, 1999, back in the last century, dare I say, it was then starting it up as an entrepreneurial idea. It's like, yeah, I can do this. I can design logos. I can help companies with their marketing. And that's what I did. Because I was already doing it. I was doing it within other companies. And as an entrepreneur, you sort of think, well, I can do it better. Not sure what that better was at the time, but yeah, when I started it, it was like, okay, I'm the guy, you've got to meet me. I'm going to help you. I'm going to figure out a solution to your branding, your marketing, your printing. And it was all about the service. It was all about me helping you. And so that's why I was sort of like the central pin to it it was just me. You're right. It was me finding it, doing it, invoicing it and doing all of those functions within the business that was needed. But it was only as time passed, felt like needed to expand it and grow it really. And that's when you start, I did, I started to bring in other people. First off was my wife, and then a designer, and then you've got a few more people, and it just left me to really go from doing all of the seats, if you like, all of the functions, into more of this sort of front end, find it, nurture it, find it, whatever, convert it. And I enjoyed that, because then I didn't have to do all the doing, if you know what I mean. So
what was the first, just looking at the sales side, what was the first seat that you gave up there?
The first seat I gave up was production, really. So I gave up being a designer, and then somebody else was doing it, because I always was a jack of all trades. I've never been a master of any. I'm just a bit, jack of all trades, if you like, really. And so therefore it started to then bring people that were a bit more passionate about their design and probably more educated on it than I was. And they would be in those seats. And so that would free it up. And then I'd then be in more of this sales, account management, new business sort of seats, really.
It must have. So when I was looking online, you had some pretty decent clients. You had the likes of Red Bull and some serious names. So it must have ended up getting to a pretty sophisticated sales function by the time you came to exiting. Is that right? Or the say more than what was happening?
Right. Look, you can win accounts just by being the right person at the right time and being lucky. I mean, my first account was British Cycling.
Really?
Yeah. So I was a cyclist.
Huh.
I was into cycling. And therefore, I contacted them and said, hey, look, I can help you. I'm a cyclist. I know what you need for your marketing. And so that's how I got that job. And therefore, the first job I got was like an advert for them. Said, could you do an advert in this magazine? I said, yeah, sure, 150 odd quid. And did the advert. And then I got the phone call saying, actually, that advert you've done, that's great, but we actually need it to go into a book, but we need you to produce the book. It was the manual. And so I ended up doing like a 20 grand job off the back of a 150 grand job. And that was that was my breakthrough on day one almost. That was the client of my dream client. But you're right, we did pick up others like Laura Ashley and Red Bull and, next, Tate, V&A. All from a field in Cheshire. I mean, it's quite random. We should have been dairy farmers rather than digital guys. But it's sometimes about putting that proposition out there, being clear about it, and that's I think where some of those, in fact, lucky breaks came from. We were doing a website at one stage for a guy who made curtains up in Wigan,
right?
And he said, "Well, look, I'm making these curtains, but I also supply Next." And so why don't we see if we can put the same website into them and do a curtain configurator for them for their website? And so they accepted it. So now we're doing Next curtain website. Wow. And that's pretty cool because then we get a phone call from Laura Ashley saying, well, I thought he was chasing my wife's credit card debt, but instead...
Didn't pick up until the fourth time they rang.
I was putting them off. I was really avoiding them. But what they said was, look, we want to speak to you because you did a website for Next, for curtains. I'm like, yeah, we'd like to speak to you. So me and Rob went in there into what we thought was going to be a small meeting. And in fact, there was like a room full of people from Laura Ashley to listen to the best people in the country for websites for curtains. I mean, it was just so niche. But anyway, we got the gig. Half the team, people said we can't work with them. They work with our competitor. The other half said, we've got to. They work for our competitor. And so we did. We got the gig. And so we got another website for curtains.
Wow. So in terms of key takeaway there, was it that if you were to be starting out from scratch and someone was to say to you, Adrian, I've got a killer idea. Curtains, online, configurators, what do you think? Like, I can't imagine many people jumping up at that and go, could I? But just niche. And that's basically what not just created the first breakthrough, but then the trickle effect of one door leads to two more.
Yeah, I think in the early days, it was all about that relationship that Adrian's going to help you and sort you out. And whatever it is, I'm going to do it. That generalization, jack of all trades. But over the time, we got into digital, niched into sort of like certain size websites, then into e-commerce. Then we were doing like this whole sort of niche of curtain stuff. And the niche was very good for us. Very good for us. The good for us that we had several niches, if I'm honest, sometimes wrong niches.
Yeah, sure.
And, we'd try and be innovative with tech and just try and create something and be niche around that. And it just completely failed. We lost money on it and clients and credibility. But when we did get that niche right, then it actually led to us selling, I believe, strongly in that we got to the point where we only worked on one type of technology, Salesforce Commerce Cloud. Mm-hmm. And there weren't many more using that technology because there wasn't a massive demand for it, if I'm honest about it. But we had got the Tate and V&A and Gatwick and, some nice brands on it that we were then interested for, companies overseas were interested in what we were doing for Salesforce in the UK. So that niche led to us actually selling.
Wow. That's so powerful. That's so powerful. Because I think that if you were to say to the average business owner, you want to niche down, they'll get it conceptually and theoretically. But when you say, okay, but now we're actually going to take your business where you're going after all these things and we're going to chop off these ones. Whoa, 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 whoa. No, 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 no. It feels counterintuitive. It feels like you're cutting off the market rather than going deeper into a market or creating more of a market.
Right.
But I think that's a wonderful example of when you explicitly say no to things, as long as you're saying yes to the right thing. Obviously, it doesn't serve anyone well to say, we're going to go down this thing, and it's a very short dead end. Like that obviously doesn't serve well. But by following through iteration and where is it the market's effectively pulling you to, but at least with the North Star of we just want to do what works and lots of it, I think that's a phenomenal example. Okay.
It's hard to stick to, though, if I'm perfectly frank about it, Ollie, because we had got Red Bull as an account. We'd won Red Bull, and there's a long story around that, but we got that. But it was quite an outlier in that it was like a bespoke platform that we'd built, and we were trying to build this niche on Salesforce, and that didn't fit into it. So we did have to. We made lots of bad mistakes, but this was probably the right one. We had to actually move that Red Bull account away from us and say, look, it's not in our core offering of what we've got to be going after. And so we actually moved it off with some of the team that were working on it. We said, look, you go and leave us, set up, run the account, and, we'll carry on with it. And it was a tough decision, but what it did was it freed us from this it was old technology now, and we knew it was going to bite our ass at some stage, so we had to get rid of it and stay true to we've got to go on this niche journey and follow this if we're going to get famous. And that was one of the things, not from a significance point, but just from we felt we needed to get famous from a niche point if we wanted to get the right new work coming into us, and that helped us.
Wow. Were you operating on EOS by that point?
By then, yes. I mean, EOS came along in my world around 2013. That was when I had yes. Yeah. So I've known it a while. But 2013 was dare I say, a shit year for me, in the sense that it started off with my mum passing away, which was not good, didn't set me up well. Went through painful divorce, which was horrible for everybody involved. And then I'd overtraded. I'd lost the plot a bit, really. I'd lost love and faith in my team and my business from me, my leadership, and run out of money, both in the business and me personally, which meant I ended up living in my office for 3 months, just trying to figure my crap out. And that's just when somebody gave me the book Traction, the EOS book Traction. I had time on my hands, so I read it. And I thought, well, yeah, let's put some of this into place, and managed to then put the system into place. We couldn't afford an implementer, which was a problem, but we could follow the process, quite well. We got a funding circle loan of 120 grand that dropped in on the Monday, paid everybody off on the Tuesday, and then we had to say, right, we got to make this job work. And me and Rob, we made it work and followed the process, with rigor. And it didn't happen overnight. But over 6 years, it sort of managed to pick up and go, and then we got to a point where we sold in 2019 for a healthy sum. So we were good.
Wow, what a story! What a story, huh? The thing that jumped out to me there's really two things, and the reason why I asked about where you want EOS by that point, because I think if you didn't have necessarily the labeling of core focus, then it could just feel like business. Hey, money's money. But I think with that very deliberate, this is a core focus, and therefore that falls out. You're kind of forced to make a decision. So when then going on that journey of then continuing to, but in fact, no, sorry, I want to ask a different question. I'll come back to that. You read through the book, you see all of these different tools, you don't have an implementer. Where did you start? And what tool did you find had the biggest impact, if there was to be like an 80-20 for your journey? Not generally speaking, but for your journey.
Yeah, I mean, for people that don't know about EOS, I mean, it is a book. It's Traction by Gino Wickman. He wrote it. It's a system. It's 20 tools, quite simple tools. He read all the books that are out there and realized there wasn't really a system to knit it all together. And so he created this system to do that. So when I got the book and read the book and went through it, there was a number of things, but the key ones, the foundational tools, are things like the accountability chart. Because so many times in organizations, and I find this often, I go in and say, look, do you have an accountability chart? And they roll out their sort of org chart, organizational chart. This is where we sit people. And I'm like, no. I want to know who's accountable for what, because it's not often clear. You know, we tend to find that in organizations, lots of people are, well, has he got it? I've got it. We share it. And that's hard. So we've got to be very clear on what the seats are, the functions, clear of what the roles are that need to be done in those seats. And only finally do we check to see we've got the right person to sit in those seats, because what we're looking for is a team of right people, right seats. 100% would be amazing, but we don't often find it. We often find issues in there that we have probably got some right people, which meet our values, nice people, salt of the earth, do anything for you, but just struggle in the seat, as in doing what they need to be doing. They're just sales, you know. You got this guy, lovely guy, so nice, came to our wedding. Do you know what I mean? But he's not hitting his numbers. What do? We just, wow, it's the way he is. You know, Bob's all right. Let's keep him. He can help make a good cup of tea. Do you know what I mean? So we keep them longer than we probably should do, but it's a problem. It is a bit of a cancer in the business. The business is paying for it, you know. And then you've got the other type where you've got somebody that's really, really good on their numbers. You know, they're coming in and they really are nailing those numbers. But bloody hell, do you hate working with them? You know, you just, I had one that I just hate meeting with them. They were just, I mean, they make me feel inferior because they felt they were smarter. And they were. I mean, give them their due. They were smarter than me. But I didn't need to be put down every time. And I just didn't like it. And so it really conflicted with my values. But they were hitting the numbers. So what did we do? We said, well, yeah, great. Let's promote them, give them more people. And then suddenly they've got mini them.
Yeah,
it's like a bunch of minions you don't like. I mean, this is like, holy cow, right now I'm really loving coming to work, aren't I? So I think we've got to be very careful whether we've got the right people in the right seats. Because if we get the right people, meet us culturally, and they can get the job done, hit the numbers and so on, right seats, oh my God, that's when business just starts to go. It's what I call releasing the handbrake. It just allows you to put the foot on the gas to go with it. But anything like that is holding you back. And so going back to your question, that was probably one of the big things, was accountability chart. Who's accountable for what? You know, there's no point. It's just having this grand vision. I mean, vision's easy. We can dream a vision.
Yeah.
But unless we've got traction towards that vision, it's hallucination. And we don't want to hallucinate. We want to really get clear on that vision. We want to then be able to put the foot on the gas to actually go towards it with as much vigor as we can.
Yeah, love it. Love it. When I work with clients in Velocity, so we go through a little program. We start off with positioning, then go to process, then go to people. And it's basically who we're going after, how we're going to go after them, and then who's actually going to do what within that. And it's only when, like, everyone's all happy smiles in the first two, and it's only when you put the names against it that it's like, whoa, hang on a minute. What do you mean I'm going to be doing that? That's the bit that makes it real.
Yeah.
You know, up until that point, yeah, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this. No, you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Well, hang on a minute. Yeah. But it's the forcing function of action. No name, no action. It's just not going to happen at all. That's really fascinating. That's the main thing. So then you carried on building it up. What did it then look like? I suppose what I'm getting to here is many organizations within SME, especially agencies or professional services organizations, very much founder-led, dependent on one person. In order to exit, it has to not be dependent on that person, or at least it's going to decimate your multiples. So what did it end up getting to by the time you ended up leaving it?
Yeah, we got to a good place. I mean, we got our sort of fame, if you like. So our outward brand was pretty good. It was pulling opportunities our way. Our network was strong. So, you know, we're always looking for the right connectors who can feed you. And we got some good ones because, again, it was like, well, they're a safe pair of hands. So that was our outward side was very, very strong, rather than it having to be pushed hard from the inside. But I think, we really geared up our marketing quite a lot. I'm a firm believer, really, that, if you're taking on a salesperson, you've got to try and think whether they are more of a hunter or a farmer. I mean, so many times, and I got this wrong. I mean, it cost me fortunes taking people on and saying, right, go and sell for us. And then they'd be like, well, what do you want me to sell? Sell anything. We can do it, right? And so when you're not clear of your proposition, it makes it really hard for salespeople, because then they go out and then they're proud to bring something in, and you're like, well, why have you brought that in? And they're like, I've done what you said.
Yeah, I don't want that.
And so, over years, it sounds simple, but got clearer on the proposition. So then we can say to the sales people, really, this is it. We've got to be crystal clear. And if we think about EOS, it has a piece called the marketing strategy. Who is it we're going after? What's the demographics, psychographics, geographics, where are they? I mean, let's get very, very clear on exactly who we want to hunt. Because we tend to find that we can go too scattergun and too broad.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's just like that's our focus, and it's taking it to be much wider. It's much harder to get to it. But if we can get really laser sharp and make sure we saturate that first before we start to widen it, I find so often that, teams were sort of like, oh, there's a lead, we can go, and you're all over the shop. But I think what really helped us was to get laser sharp focus to say, that's it. We knew, I think it was like about 87 companies in the country were running on this platform. So we knew all of them. We knew the names. We nurtured that. I'd sent some Valentine's cards at Feb 14, handwritten and stuff like that, just to be very, very focused on it. So, we got sharp on our marketing. So we had a marketing function, which was helping then to be very focused for the sales point of view. It's like, well, we're not wasting time. We're just really going after these because they really fit what we want to be working on, our niche.
Yeah, I love it. So sometimes I feel like if you imagine there's a person in a room and there's 20 doors, and each of those different doors are basically different markets, different sectors. And then sometimes I feel like people just open the doors really quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Anything there? No. Anything there? No. Anything there? No. Anything there? No. But what you got to do is you got to go through the door, look around the room, and then there might be like Narnia's cupboard at the back. And you're like, okay, there's actually loads back here. But you don't figure it out until you actually go in the door. I suppose broad and shallow versus narrow and deep. Yeah. But you got to spend the time actually going narrow and deep in order to see where it actually goes.
Yes. The other strong tool in the EOS toolbox is just the simple scorecard. The scorecard sort of levels it. It takes out that gut feeling. It just brings in this level of rigor about what's happened this week. We're trying to just have a good week, not a great week, not catch you out week, but just what's a good week look like? Because if we can have a good week in sales this week and another good week, it's just going to mount up until we're having like a great quarter. That's what we're trying to do. I think if we're trying, in business, we tend to find that, okay, we have a good week and then we have a crap week, but we've got to do something about that. We've got to be catching it very quickly. And that's what a great scorecard helps you to do.
Yeah, I love it. So when going through that transition, and I think this is probably something that everyone, if you're looking to scale a company, you got to go through this eventually. The transition from gut feel, we're all in this together, fly by the seat of our pants, hey, this is just fun, to the structure of something like a scorecard. What would you say would be, if I was speaking to a founder and said, look, this is something you got to do, but let me tell you what, there's going to be some challenges when you do it. These are going to be the bramble bushes that you're going to go through when going from gut feel to structure. What would you say would be some of those challenges they're likely to face, just so they know it in advance?
You see, I often found sort of a visionary, it works in their own sort of way. I mean, I speak from personal views and opinions that I used to be like that, and I didn't follow the processes too well. I'd make it up, and my team would always be wanting me to be a little bit more rigorous and more processed, and I'd be like, it's fine, we can just do it, And so it can work, to a point. But when you then start to want to scale a sales team on that, then it breaks very quickly. You know, the sales team really need to have that. Who's accountable? What's my numbers? Let's have some rigor, some process, and take out that sort of a visionary, emotive led. So I think the other thing to build around that is I see many times that founders, visionaries sort of like to waltz in and say, right, Ollie, sales guy, here's your numbers. Crack on, get out there, get them done. And it's like forcing the number on, you know, it can sometimes push people away and like, whoa, I've got no chance. How am I going to do that?
Yeah, I'm about to get fired.
Yeah. And so, yeah, no problem, boss. You know, so that's quite hard. I personally found it was much better saying, Ollie, look, this is where the company is going. We want to do X amount this year. We believe we should be able to do this in this quarter. You know, you're the sales guy. What do you think? What do you need? How are we going to achieve this task? Because if we can work at it together and figure out what that looks like, and, you know, a good leader in some respects will help to get the person to come through with those numbers and that plan, because then they own it much better. And my belief is work with them to get them to craft it, create it. So then it aligns with mine. But if it aligns with mine, great. Now crack on. You got it. You own it. You are accountable for it. And therefore, we got much more chance of achieving it.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. And I think what you've highlighted there is a very, very, very common issue, which is people get excited about a number. The owner gets excited about a number. Leadership gets excited about a number. We're going to do however many million. All right, cool. We're going to roll that out across the team. Guys, you've got 2 million, you've got 3 million, you've got 1.5, go. And it's something which is just pushed on them with zero buy-in. And you're almost carrying there's obviously no malice there, but it's the excitement for them of, hey, we're going to do this thing. We're going to go on this journey. You this, you this, you this. But without recognizing that it's actually a person on the other end. And they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. And even if you get to the exact same result, it's almost like Inception. Like the most powerful idea is the one that came from the other person. So then the question becomes, you've got the number you want to get them to. How do you get them to say that number? What's the journey you can take them on? Does it take a little bit longer? Yes, of course it does. But if you're looking at the longevity of impact that it then creates, infinitely better when they can put their stamp of approval on it. They can wrap their arms around it. They can build their plan as to how they're going to get there. We're going to take them on that journey versus, hey, Bill, it's 2 mil. Off you go. Don't come back until you got it.
Absolutely. Totally.
Different game entirely. Different game entirely.
It is. And, you know, the amount of teams that I work with and, you know, support in their journey, because that's what we do. We do 3 things. We teach them what EOS is and the process and the model and so on and the tools. But also our role is to facilitate. And so we're listening out and looking to see what's going on, the subtleties at times, and also coach, because I've run it in my business and I see that on a daily basis. But many times I see sort of visionary founders, you know, pushing these sales numbers and saying, look, this quarter, we've got to do that. And everyone's, we got to do that. And then I come back in and after the quarter end, you know, and say, how was the quarter? Now we failed and we failed and we failed. Okay, what about next quarter? That's what we're going to do.
I have seen that so many times.
And it's yeah, I mean, this is the thing. And then what I say to the teams is, look, there's no point us keep predicting wrong. One of the skills that we've got to have as a leader is short-term and long-term prediction. You know, we've got to predict well, because what I think people are listening for 2 things in organizations. I think they're listening to, does the leadership have a plan, and are they credible? Are they credible leaders, and do they have a plan? That's number 1. And 2, do I have a seat in that plan? If I have a seat in that plan that really excites me, you know, I get it. I get what I've got to do. I want it, and I've got the capacity to do it, the time, the skills, the knowledge. You know, if I GWC, as we call it, get it, want it, capacity in the plan, and they respect what the leaders are saying, and history shows 80% of the times they're predicting really well. What we don't want is 0 or 20%, and, you know, them predicting and like, got no chance, have we?
Yeah. Do you know what? I think that's one of the, among many others, that's one of the great benefits of having an implementer. In as much as without that intervention, like there's no feedback loop that says, guys, last 4 quarters, it's been exactly the same. You're about to do it again. How about something different? And it's not that the owner of the company, obviously, like, no one's dumb. It's not like anyone's taking a misstep. It's just like when you, as you guys often say, when you're in the bottle, you can't see the label. And it's that. And people come into those planning sessions with enthusiasm, with ambition. So it's only right that you're going to then put a big number forward again. But there's a difference between the mechanics of what works versus it's emotion versus logic. I suppose that's really what it boils down to. And when you're in that room with everyone together and there's lots of emotion, it's flying high, we could do anything. Yeah, big number. And then the logic of the mechanics of the business and where we are in our relationships and whatever's going on in the function hasn't changed. Like that's still exactly the same as what it was. But I think that's, one of the great bits of value that people like you can really bring into that room.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, it does make me smile when that situation happens. And it happens often, because when we are rock setting, and that is where we're setting the big things we must do for the next 90 days, we're setting the numbers and the revenue. I look at it through a lens, which when we've done it all, I then just say, well, great, that looks really good. Just remember last time we got 0% on rocks and you missed your revenue and your profit was down by 50%. What are we thinking on this quarter? What are you going to do differently that's going to achieve that? And you can see everybody then look at the visionary and the integrator or whatever, and what are we going to do, boss? So this is why it levels it. And I'm like, whoa, hang on. What do your sales, what do you think?
Yeah.
And then, when we've got that, if we've got trust in the team, brilliant. Trust is amazing. That's what we're looking for. But it takes a while to get there with trust. But if you've got the salesperson, it's like, well, I actually think we can only do 10. And then the visionary's like, 10? Holy cow. Yeah, but I based on what we've got and what we know, I think 10's a number. Oh, my word, we're going to have to remodel.
Yeah.
Or what is it? Is it the right person in the right seat that's saying 10? Or do we have to remodel? Or, now we've got a new issue. What's the issue? Let's go to root cause of the issue and let's try and solve that issue rather than just being led by a visionary saying, we've got to do this number. Yeah.
And you know what? I think that's such an important point again in terms of I'm not going to say friction per se, maybe healthy friction of the people that are doing the work often pull down the expectation of the number because it's the number that's going to go on their back. Even if it was to be the case that they're thinking, I could probably do a bit more, but man, this looks like I'm really going to have to stretch. So they're pulling it down. The other one's pulling it up. Neither is right nor wrong. It's somewhere in the middle, but you need to have the forum, if you like, to be able to have that healthy debate. Otherwise, both people are thinking it, but it's just in separate rooms. And then you have unhealthy friction.
Yes, exactly. And that, that's what we've got to get to that point where we are all aligned. We're going to have issues. We're going to have moments where we're off track to what we predict, but we've got to be able to, open up about what those are and aim to get them back on track if we've got enough runway with it. I think sometimes, again, the other thing I observe and, call out on teams is not calling that early enough. It's like when we're looking at the scorecards. And it's red. I had one the other day. Someone showed me their scorecard. They were quite proud of it. I said, it's very red, isn't it? And they're like, yeah. And I said, well, what's wrong? Is it the number that's wrong? Is it the performance? Is it the economy? Where's the problem? Well, it's all of it. And what do you do about it? Well, we just keep on going. Oh, you're living on hopium, are you? Yeah, we're living on hopium. we hope to get there someday.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I suppose that's a different bucket of problems, isn't it? Where the numbers almost become wallpaper.
Yes, and that's one of the things which I really challenge teams on and say to them, look, if you're looking at a red scorecard all the time and it's a row of numbers, you're missing a trick. Because in my view, I think it should be, we set the plan and here's a good week for all of our numbers. And generally, we're really on track. It will never always be, but roughly. But if we start to get a red number, something that's off track, and to me, that is like the red light on the dashboard on your car coming on. Generally we do something about that. Yeah, my wife might put black tape over it, but I think it's important that if we get like one or two here, that's probably going to be like leads and opportunities, which means maybe in a month there's going to be deals, versions, cash. It's an early warning sign. It's a gift. It's a gift that we've got an issue that we must try and solve here, because we've got a real big issue down here if we don't get it right. And I think we miss that. Wallpaper is a great example. It's just like, it's always red. I like red.
No, it's always like, it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about that. Amazing. All right, last thing that I want to come to. I mentioned at the beginning, if we're looking at the different pillars of your career, if you like, business owner, EOS implementer, Tony Robbins coach. I think where three of those things come together is, how is it that we affect change? How is it that we galvanize people in order to move? And obviously you've had experience coming at that from different angles, but the mindset that I'm putting myself in right here is, I am a founder. I am a sales leader, sales manager. I'm hearing this and I'm thinking, oh man, I need to change my team. But maybe it's like wallpaper again. Like we're so pinned down by inertia, if you like. How do we actually now create that change? What would be your recommendation as to perhaps some best practices or things that you can do in order to jumpstart change, to be an agent of change?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I learned from Tony Robbins, and I'm sure many people listening to this will be aware of him, the big guy from America with the big teeth. I mean, he's known to be the guru and the coach for the rich and famous and many thousands and thousands of others. And he's brilliant at that. But when you ask him, he says, I'm the why guy. I'm the why guy because I want to know why you're doing what you're doing. And so previously when I was working with my teams, it was very much about trying to figure out, why are you doing that? What is it that motivates you? What's holding you back? What's the stories that you keep telling yourself? I don't like sales. I don't like ringing people. I don't like, I don't believe in the product, or whatever it is. There's negativity that is playing in your head, which will get in the way. And it's very, very hard to get rid of those. And so, from Robbins and from my experience of working with my team and the teams that I work with and coach and support now, it's very much about, why are you doing that? What is it? So, as another great implementer I just heard then in my head, Alice, it's very much about get curious. Why is it that they're doing that? What is it that's the outcome from it? And that's what we've got to do. I think as leaders, as sales leaders, as coaches, mentors, whatever we are, if we can show that we care about people rather than just steam in and say, you've got to do, you're off with your numbers, you look terrible, crack on. It's just got to be, wow, again, a thing from Simon Sinek in my head, are you okay?
Yeah.
Let's care for the people. I've seen changes in people when they reach an age, 21, 29 going to 30, 39 going to 40, getting married, getting divorced, parents dying. Because we can have these right people at times and in the right seats, but sometimes things trigger and then it's like, oh, right, suddenly they're off. And we've got to, as leaders, coaches, whatever label we put on it, we've got to be there to actually dig in and say, look, I care. Are you okay? What is it you're going through? Can I help you? All that sort of stuff. And that I have found time and time again has helped my relationship with my team and therefore helped with the results.
Yeah, that's really insightful. As you were sharing that, it was also Simon Sinek that was coming to mind for me in terms of start with why. And I think that applies both to the individual in as much as, let's bring it back to the sales setting. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
What is it about sales? What is it about this role? What does that mean to you? What does your career actually mean to you? Where is it you're looking to go? That's the individual. And I think that's a wonderful agent of change, starting with there and then seeing how the role can wrap into that.
Absolutely.
But then equally as the collective team. Guys, what do we stand for here? We're all coming to work every day. why. Like, oh,
Yeah.
if we all work together over the course of the next 3 years, how is the world any different versus if we were to not? Like, what is that we're looking to change? And I think that collective set of why are we doing this is a really cool way of bandying everyone together. And then when it comes to the what and the things that we're going to do, well, that's just a natural product of the why. And it becomes far easier for that to come to life versus just smashing people over the head. We've got to do more calls.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the changes we made in Blueleaf, you referenced Blueleaf and the journey in there, and it was a 20-year journey. But one of the big changes was when we figured that, why we're doing what we're doing. And what we had was a big message up on the wall, which was, what would the best digital agency in the world do right now?
Amazing.
What would the best digital agency in the world do right now? And we were a digital agency. And therefore, it wasn't egotistical to say we are it, but it got us to question it, which also could come down to a singular level. Because then what would the best front-end developer and the best agency in the world do right now? And it gave them the ability to make their own choices.
Yeah, really good.
It was all about, quality and service, and it wasn't about letting down and bugs. It was very simple, because then when I'm with people and saying, are you it? Are you doing that? And if you weren't, it's like, well, that's what we're after.
Yeah, it's an implicit standard. It almost gets created.
Absolutely.
What an amazing point to round off on. All right, finally then, Adrian, how can people who are listening to this reach out and find you?
LinkedIn, Adrian Lomas, EOS implementer. That's it. That's very, very easy. So I'm on LinkedIn, website, Adrian Lomas, all the standard stuff. But please reach out. Help First is one of my, all of the EOS implementers are Help First, by the way, but it's really important to me. It always has been. And so anybody wants to bounce around, ask some questions, or even wants to copy that book. I was gifted that book. If you want one, let me know. I'll send it you.
Amazing. All right. Thank you, Adrian.
All right. Thanks so much.